In this special episode of the Jeremiah Rangel podcast, number 3, I talk with Vinnie, who is a military veteran. He's a father, and he's somebody who was struggling with severe PTSD. He got training in the military for specific things that were going to happen in war. Then he actually went over to war, but he dealt with some things and came up with some things that he wasn't mentally, spiritually, or his nervous system wasn't ready for, which lead to severe PTSD, caused a lot of damage with his family, and led him to a really dark place. That's when we met, and through coaching, we actually, within a few sessions, completely changed this for him, which was really grateful. It was one of the best, biggest breakthroughs we had, which actually led us to having a military discount program. If there's anybody who's been in the military, we have a special rate, a special program for you to be able to help you. If you watch this video and it really resonates, please reach out. Or if you know somebody that needs to watch this video that can help them, please send it to just at least one person. So let's get into this video. Let's get into this podcast. It's going to be really transformational. I hope it helps. We're sending a lot of great energy your way. Um, yeah, I guess for today, again, my intention is to be as like, I want to hear your story and I want to be as authentic and as detailed as you would like to be. I just feel not only like kind of where you were, what happened, but how you got through it too. All of that. I think all of it's important. And I think your story really matters. I feel like my intention is that, as many people can listen to this that needs to hear it and know that they can get help. Like help is out there. Like I said, especially what we kind of talked about being in the military. The military in general trains, let's just say, soldiers for X, right? But they don't
Yeah.
necessarily always trade Y and Z, kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
when you're not in a war situation, it's different. It's different not being in a war situation, and then going to war. It's like you can train all you want, but like once you get there, there's variables, right? There's Y and Z, and then there's things that you didn't train for, and so yeah, so that's just kind of like you know what I.
Absolutely, yeah. So, uh, I guess, like, where do I begin?
Well, we can start like wherever you want, but we can start like where were you born? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up, in Florida, and I also grew up in New York, and I moved around a lot when I was younger. My life, from an early age was always chaos, and, I kinda, my parents, I believe, did the best they could, but it was I really, like I said, I had to fend for myself. I raised my little sister, and I I had kids at a very early age, and I joined the military. So I bounced around a lot. I never really had any kind of stable environment, and I didn't want that for my family. So I ended up joining the military during the Operation Iraqi Freedom and OEF war. I deployed to Iraq, and in 2000, and my unit was QRF out there, which means Quick Reaction Force.
Mm.
And I deployed with the Third Infantry Division to Baghdad, and it was a little bit crazy. And like you said, the military just kind of pounds it in your in your DNA and your bones to constantly be ready for anything, kind of hypervigilance, um, be on the lookout of certain things, and they don't really prepare you. I feel like their intentions are to prepare you like 3 months before you get out, like, oh, just go do this, help you get a job. But there's nothing like we talked about. When you go through trauma, it lingers in your body when you do things. Like from the moment you hit boot camp to the moment that like you get out of the military, like that is like your like, I don't want to say brainwashed because that's such a stereotypical, but you're
Condition,
trained to, yeah,
trained.
you're conditioned to endure everything, and then once everything calms down, it's like the chaos inside of you still remains. So
In a way, like being on a treadmill for a long time and then you get off and you just there's still like that centrifugal force, like the object in motion wants to stay in motion, soldier in war, on some level wants to stay in war, or at least at that higher pace, right? And it's just like
yeah,
there's the mission, there's the mission, there's the structure, there's like everything is set out, like kind of in a way, kind of like a treadmill. It's like this pace, this speed, and then just keep up, kind of a thing.
yeah, yeah, and also, there's a purpose. Like, you have this mission, you have this. There's always something lined up, and I do believe we were doing something for, like whether it was just keeping the person next to you alive or going on a humanitarian mission. There was always something to look forward to. Like there's always progression. Um, you're when you become a non-commissioned officer, or if you're an officer, it's training your soldier. It's teaching them. You become cultured. So many different walks of life enter your life, and you become integrated, and you live with these guys. So you search for that camaraderie when you come out too, and you search for that higher, like for that mission, for that purpose. And like you said, when you're on this treadmill and you just stop, or like a roller coaster, you still feel like you're going, so you try to keep up at that pace. And there's something about, like you said, wanting to stay in that kind of mindset, which it's kind of it's weird because it's like, I believe, I don't know what, I can't tell you where in between getting out and where I went, but I like where I started to spiral, but I knew when I needed to go get help, and it was during the the worst possible timing. It was when during COVID. Um, I that was a very dark time in my life, and well, but the worst part about it all was that, um, looking back at it and even going through it, I realized how bad, like, that shit, excuse my language, fucked my family up watching me go through it. And still to this day, like, some of the things that we did, like, really with NLP, like, helped me out, like, kind of like get over that guilt, because there's so many things that you do, especially in combat or in life period, when you're going through a dark period, that you set the world on fire around you, which just helps you, like, just helps you down that drain, like spiraling down. And I wish that I could kind of like, like, and I think that's how NLP helped. Like, you go back and you people forgive you, and it's hard. Like, it's harder to forgive yourself. And there's not a lot of help out there, but there is help. And I think the reason why I'm still here and have been able to talk to you today is that I had a phenomenal support group, and not a lot of soldiers do,
Mm.
when they come out. And if I didn't have my family, and if they didn't care about me the way they cared about me, I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't be here. And so, yeah, it was during COVID, and I uh, I lost my job because of it, like, because I I was so hyper vigilant, so hyper focused, so hyper, like, kind of like, didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. Like, I just couldn't integrate, and I was having a lot of, um similar feelings. And the way, like, the VA and, like, just stereotypical to me. therapy goes is that it's just so generic. It's like, well, do you have these symptoms, X, Y, and Z? And it's like, well, not really, but yes. It's like, well, do you feel like this? And it's like, well, tell me about your day. Like, it's like, well, you can use these techniques to do that. And it's just kind of like, it's like going through the process. It's like you can talk about something all you want. You can, but it's like you actually have to go through, like, you have to dig and peel the layers back. You have to do the work. You have to, like, be, like you said, authentic. You have to say, I've done this, and then you have to feel it. And I believe that NLP allows you to go back and feel it. I feel like, it's in the name, period. And neuro linguistic programming, like like we are programmed to an early, like, at an early age, that to be a certain way, and then you kind of like dive into it, and it's like feeding a certain, like, like that terminology, which wolf, like you have the good wolf and you have a bad wolf, and then whichever wolf you feed more, that's the one that's going to win and take over. And I think that there's a lot of people hurting out there, and like the work that you're doing, and the work that your wife is doing, it's going to help the world. I really do believe that. Just from the couple of sessions I had with you, I've been talking to my wife about it. Like, I've been doing a lot better.
That's awesome. I mean, that there's nothing that lights up my heart more, you know what I mean? Because that's like I put a lot of work into positioning myself so that when I'm in front of somebody, like there's nothing that can come up that I can't help them with. And so far, that's been true as long as people are ready, able, and willing. Teaming up with these resources, it's just
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a lot. And so I kind of want to let's if you it's up to you, but let's go back to before like you grew up and you had to raise your younger sister, and there was
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
some a lot of instability. What was it between I'm just really curious, what was it between, like, how you grew up and then, like, choosing to go in the military? Because I wanna know, like, is there anybody else in your family? Was it to escape a bad environment? Was it more stability or to make something of yourself? Because like, I almost went into the military at certain points, and I just didn't. Like, I just kinda life steered me towards, like, firefighter, paramedic stuff, and then towards physical training, and it's so interesting around that time period. But how did you get from 10 years old to whenever you enlisted?
Yeah, so I it was a combination of a lot of things. It was almost like something, like, I felt like it was like a calling I had. Um and it was a lot of instability. So I ended up having two kids at the age I was 16 years old, two kids, and my
Both both at
parents, yeah, both at the same time. And I also was raising my little sister. My parents were completely absent. I have two sisters. We just moved back from New York to Florida. And so we were all so there was six of us at the time, like in my family, my two sisters, my sister's boyfriend, and my parents. And we were all living in that one bedroom apartment. And I made friends with people in this apartment complex. It was a little sketchy. And
This is in New
it
York?
was just no, this was back in Florida.
Okay.
And it was very sketchy. And I had two kids with somebody, and I wasn't able to provide for them. And then I was also taking care of my little sister, so I dropped out of high school and started studying and working at the same time. And I got my GED, and trying to just create like a stable environment for my kids, because I didn't want them growing up the way I grew up, and I
Mhm.
wanted to have um, I wanted to be somebody they could look up to and have accomplishments, and create a life for them. And at that time, it was kinda like once I hit 18, 19 years old and I was able to join, I was gone. And I remember at that time, it was definitely it was to escape the environment, to be a role model for my kids, to create stability and all that for my kids, my wife, and for my little sister. And I ended up my little sister, I'm really proud of her now. She just graduated the police academy, and she married my best friend, my battle buddy that I deployed with, and she has four kids.
You said bottle buddy?
Battle buddy, yeah,
Battle buddy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And man, I was getting when I was in boot camp, I was really, really, really worried about my little sister because the letters I would,
I was
yeah,
gonna
she
ask
was just
how she and how was the 2 kids when you left?
so they it was that was hard. It was it was they my little sister, the letters I was getting from her in boot camp was that she felt like I abandoned her. Um, she felt like everybody forgot about her. She got hooked on drugs pretty bad.
Hmm.
And then, my wife kind of, felt this similar, but not too bad. She was kinda supportive. Boot
So,
camp was crazy.
when did you get 16, you had 2 girls?
2 boys.
2 boys. You had 2 boys, and then you met your wife at what age?
I met my wife the first time I moved to Florida. No, I moved back to Florida, so second time. She just moved we moved it was cosmic. It was like, she just moved to the same part of Florida that I moved to, and, from Key West. I moved to New York, and like one of the first times I went out, we met on Valentine's Day, um, at the skating rink in middle school.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I
Alright.
think that was year 2000 almost. Yeah,
Okay, and then you started dating before you went into the military?
yeah, and yeah, right before that was right around. So we lost contact for a while. Moved back to Florida, and I tried looking her up. This was before cell phones and, like,
Right.
couldn't go. So I found out she was working at Chili's, and, I ended up, tracking her down. Like, I think nowadays it would be considered stalker level, like, I kept showing her up I kept showing up to Chili's, and I just kept missing her shift, and I was like I left little notes, but I guess she wasn't getting them, and then we ended up, you know, linking back up. It was funny.
That's awesome, and then so she was around a little bit to support your sister while you deployed? Or not deployed,
Yeah.
but to training?
Yeah, she did. She helped me raise my little sister.
Wow.
My little sister went to Georgia with me. She went to Tennessee. She went to Korea with me. She was always there. She helped, and then looking back, she also helped me raise my kids. So
Wow. That's pretty special.
yeah,
So you were in, boot camp or basic training, and then she writing you letters, kinda feeling what she was feeling, and then so that was tough for you?
yeah. So I was nobody, of course, during that time, nobody wanted to join the military. So I was stuck in boot camp for longer than usual because we had to accumulate enough people for an actual class. So
Re
I felt like I was stuck in purgatory, just waiting constantly. I was, constantly getting, yelled at, and not my time never started. My day zero, day one in boot camp never started, and there was no really telling of when that was going to start. So that
Nobody
was
so 9/11 obviously was in 2001 and you went in 2004?
I went in 2008.
2008,
Yeah,
and people were not really joining because they were just kinda saying it's, we went over for nothing, or what was the, like,
yeah.
the
No,
temperature check?
nobody. yeah, nobody wanted to join from what I understood. They didn't want to go over there. It was like the hundred to and look like Afghanistan or Iraq. It was like the 100-year war. Like it was there was we were just kind of occupying and just kind of like um, going after like that's what my unit did. We were kind of we were doing like being QRF. We were being doing humanitarian missions. We were going after high value targets. If we heard of anything in the area, if a unit was in trouble or we knew of triggermen for IEDs, we'd go after them or we'd help a unit out. And there was a lot of times that we went out and we did presence patrol, Overwatch, um, and if there was like a hostage, like there was a time we got called up because there was a hostage, like 10, 10 people were held captive in a Catholic church out there in Baghdad from some of the insurgents, and we would advise and assist the Iraqi police and the Iraqi armies and stuff like that. We rescued uh, some Ugandan women who, because we had the UN out there too. They got captured and they were being sexually trafficked, and my unit was one of the units that helped out and rescued those Ugandan women from being trafficked out there.
So the women were over like, how did they get there? Were they brought there and sex trafficked, or were they, like, on a mission? Like, what
So
how did
they were part of the army. They were doing from how they were captured. I believe they were doing gate guard.
they were part of the Ugandan army?
Yeah,
Part of the United
yeah.
Nations,
We had
okay.
Ugandan, Sierra Leonean. There was Italian army out there. Um, a lot of them. So that was really cool experience. Kind of like doing stuff like seeing that, like how they all like integrating with other like military.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So then
But yeah,
your boot camp or your basic training, like you said, you didn't know this was Army?
yeah, army.
Okay.
So that was man, that was nuts because it was being stuck somewhere and never knowing when you're gonna leave, and like that kind of chaos and environment was like it was that was tough. Like I went to Fort Knox, and it was that was crazy because I I was stuck with just like they put me in like this holdover platoon, which was a little weird because they had to. So the holdover platoon is like if anybody got injured during boot camp or like they had to like do retesting, like they were getting recycled.
Mm,
So that was kind of like a mind fuck to me because me and like a small group of guys are like, well, you guys are going to go over here with all these guys that have been here for 6 months, you know,
wow.
7 months. And when they're ready and we get a couple more people, then you're going to go and start your class. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, just completely like blown away, like ignorant to anything like of this kind of. I don't know anything about like, and I get with these group of guys, and they're just completely frazzled, and some of them are like a little interesting. And I was like, well, I felt like I was borderline in like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, like movie. Like,
Yeah, like, I don't know the word, like, not the bad news bears, but it's just kinda like the yeah, maybe not the A squad, of course, people that
yeah,
especially recycled a lot. Okay, so you're going in normal boot camp, was it 8 weeks, 10 weeks? What is it?
I believe it's 8 weeks.
8
Yeah,
weeks? And then you were there for how long?
I believe I was there for like 4 months.
Jeez.
Yeah, yeah. I graduated right around Christmas,
And then
and
from there
yeah, from there I ended up going to Fort Stewart, Georgia, the Third Infantry Division, um, and 6 months later, I deployed over to
Okay.
Iraq.
So in that 6 months, let's just say, what kind of training did you get? Because you got basic training, but then you're gonna probably get the higher up and you go, right, in the military, the more specialized training you get.
Yeah, so I actually went to AIT after boot camp, and I learned my job, which was field artillery. I was a cannon crew member. I shot M109 Alpha 6. Once I graduated there, which is like 3 weeks, then I went to Fort Stewart, and then I after that, we got. I can say for a fact, 100%, my unit got out. Like we got outstanding training before we deployed. Like it was back like nonstop, constant training, and I had a really high speed, phenomenal, outstanding unit. Like I would 100% put my life on the line for any of those guys, and I know they would for me too. And I we were good. We were top notch, and that's I believe that's why we were chosen to be QRF.
And then, so out of all the people that so you went and got training for 6 months, South Carolina?
Um, no, no. Oh, so we went before deployment.
Ye
No, my unit went to NTC,
NTC, okay, and where was that again?
National Training Center in California,
Okay,
in the
and
Mojave Desert.
that group got deployed that you got trained
Yeah,
with? Okay,
yeah.
got it. Where'd you first go?
I went to Ishkatal, Fob Ishkatal, out there. That was
Afghanistan?
right by Taji. It was no, that was Iraq.
Iraq, okay.
There was I didn't even have boots on ground for more like for less than a day, and we were getting rocketed.
Really, like, in where were you? Like, in Humvees or what?
No, we were so it's called ripping with the unit, the first Cav division, and we were like the first couple of months we were doing um so first couple of months we were doing hot gun, and that's where we shoot artillery back at the enemy, and also we were doing tower guard, and the unit that was there, we were integrating with them, so we were pulling tower guard and hot gun with them as they were getting ready to leave. And the minute the helicopter, the chopper dropped us off, just started getting mortared and rocketed. And
Wow.
then, that was just, it was kind of like my welcoming, like, oh, this is what happens when you're here. So that was fascinating because I'm gonna be honest with you, like even like with all that training, it was like I was like, oh, this is a real fucking deal. Like I'm not gonna lie, that first time I froze up. I was like, what the fuck? Like I hit the ground. And they were yelling for us to go into run up into the tower, and then the other guys yelling at me to get in the gun and fire back, get in the paladin. And when I was like, I didn't know where the fuck to go, so I just hit near the wall, like I ran near the closest barrier and just fucking took cover right there. That was
That's
my
what
first experience.
I kinda hear. It's I call it nervous system training, but it's like you can be in California where there is no war, and you can go through training, you can watch video, you can do simulations, grenade things, and there's no grenades, but it's not necessarily training your nervous system, it's more psychological training. Yeah, there's some
Yeah,
physical conditioning, but then once you get there, it's a whole different real world experience on all your senses, and it's just different, and your nervous system has to adjust. So what I hear, and you correct me, this is incorrect, but when people first start off like in situations like that, like war, high stress, it's almost like they see kind of tunnel
tunnel
vision
vision.
or more
Yeah,
experience. It just gets, the nervous system integrates, you can see more and more and more, and then the sensory acuity, it just goes like through the roof eventually because you can pick things apart. But that was that kind of what your experience was like.
yeah, yeah. It's exactly what it was like. And from that point on, like you know, it was kind of like uh, it happened like so often that it just kind of like you like, especially getting rocketed and mortared, like you become numb to it. It's like the sense of danger kind of like just kind of gets borderline dismissed. Like it's like you just kind of like start becoming like you feel like, oh well, I'm like borderline invincible. Like and then you kind of chase after the adrenaline. You know, it's like kind of becomes like addicting.
Mhm.
And not like saying that you deliberately put yourself in danger or anything like that, but it's like kind of coming on the out like coming out here on the outside, it's like um coming back from deployment, coming out of the military, having all that stress and chaos, like um you like I don't know, like crave to feel good. Like I don't know if that's the right terminology, but just being like my authentic self, that's my experience. Like I like you know, when I started going down that rabbit hole, like I was talking about, just feeling so shitty. I would like I started binge drinking. I started partying way too much.
After you got
You
out,
know,
right?
I yeah, after I got out, you know, just and really when like looking back at what I was after I set the world on fire, that's what I started doing was just anything that could give me a rush. I was doing. I never did any hardcore drugs. It's not my thing, but that's not. I didn't fall that far deep, but I was heading down that path. I
What does set the
some of the
world
help
on
I
fire mean?
got. Well, I so when I came back from when I moved back to New York after the army, I I had a really good job, and I had a there was a guy that I was working with. I was doing good the first few years when I got out. Uh, I
What
don't know,
years you got out?
got out 2015, August 2015. Um, and I landed a really good job in Long Island, and I kind of wanted to expand more. I was kind of like in a safe zone. Like I worked for a small business by myself, and I was making decent money. Excuse me, I was a machinist, and it was like kind of like almost like too good to be true.
Mm.
Like, you know, I was, and I wanted to explore more. I wanted to work in the city. I wanted to make a little bit more money. So I left that job, and the guy like I left on. I tried to leave on good terms, and he took it very personally.
Mhm.
Um, and I felt bad. I felt really bad because you know he was really good to me. So that once I left, it was like I unintentionally burnt a bridge with him. Like I don't know why things had to end the way they ended, the way they did. It wasn't anything personal, but he took it really personal. Once I left that job, this was right before COVID. I ended up my uncle my uncle Paulie got me a job working for the New York City school the New York City school construction authority. And the two guys that were my supervisors training me in construction safety was, I believe, one I know for a fact was he was a vet, like, and then I believe this is where I spiraled down, where I started to spiral down. One was a captain, like he was a Syrian, like in the Syrian army. He was a captain in the Syrian army, and the other one was, I believe, he was from Russia, and he was in the Russian army. And these two guys, I found this out later on, but they were like trying to sabotage like my job, and
Mm.
it was it was bad. Like, and then I was going to a lot of construction sites, and I was seeing like a lot of similarities into from deployment that were bringing back like similar feelings of things that happened and similar psychological things I felt in my body. Like I don't know how to describe it, but I just started feeling like I started going down a rabbit hole, like just high, like hypertension, creating scenarios that weren't there, that were sabotaging my relationships with people. Like I just something inside me, like there was a switch that just that was I still like have trouble with turning off. Like there was this guy brought me to when I was being trained. He brought me to a restaurant um, where I think I told you about. Um, he brought me to a restaurant where I was sitting down eating, and there was a man that was very similar, looked very similar to something, just said what I had to do something really bad to somebody over there, and it was like seeing like a ghost walk in, and especially after that day, like it was just you know, and then and then COVID ended up hitting, like I would say a couple months later, as I'm trying to like push all the dirty water like from surfacing, as I'm trying to push that all down. So then I was isolated with all those thoughts, all that, all that, and then I I couldn't even go get help at that time. My wife brought me into a facility, and
What kind of
that's when I
facility?
knew like I don't remember what it was called. I know it was near Queens. Um, I remember that like I think it was something Oaks, but he told me he's like he told me he's like this is his exact words, like I had to talk to him like on a screen. So this was like all new too, like no human contact, anything like that. He said this is classic PTSD. Those were his exact words, and that really like really hit me because like that's when I realized like I was like going crazy a little bit, and I started getting scared because I um I started getting scared because I didn't know how or what was real and what wasn't, or because you can, like when your mind makes it real, like like there was things like I remember talking like I started like I started isolating myself more and more because of the isolation that I was in. I didn't trust anybody. I hated like my windows. I hated I couldn't go out. I like it was bad. It was bad, and my kids saw me go through that, and I didn't know if I was ever gonna get better. And the worst place you can ever be is in your own head. That's something I learned, and I didn't want to be like I felt like everybody else was better off without me. So I didn't want to be a burden or anything like that.
So you got to a point where there was a lo- so this isn't my, I mean, I can share authentically, but this isn't my like story, my truth, to be shared. And I want to, what I know in communication, in coaching, in transformation, like the deeper, the more authentic, not only creates more transformation individually, but also people that are listening can actually become healed and freed and liberated just by listening too. So I'll what's called pace and leading. I'll suggest it, but we can go as deep and as detailed as you want. The
Yeah, let's
reason
do
why
it.
okay, the reason why I think it's important is because, and I'm very sensitive to it and respectful, but the thing that's important because there's a lot of people don't understand. Well, a lot of people in general don't understand things they don't experience, but a lot of people don't understand things like that goes on in the military because they don't couple of reasons, because number one, they don't experience it, but number two, when people go through really traumatic things, they don't really generally like to talk about it. There's
Yeah.
a common pattern of what you went through, which is basically you're you and you have your own experience. People, you can't really predict who goes in the military because it could be just, different people from different walks of life. I mean, um, especially, I mean, people did training with Navy SEALs and they say, well, how do you find out who's going to make a Navy SEAL? And they come from all different walks of life, for example. but, but you had your own individual experience and then you got into the military, which is a pretty similar experience, but it's also an individual experience, especially the one you went through. And
Yeah.
then you had training for things that could happen, were going to happen, and could happen to whatever training that they can give you. Then you get there and you're like, whoa, this is different than the training in some way. And then while you were there was things that nobody talked about. Like there's the word, I think the word you use, was it eliminating? What was the word you use? If there's a
Neutralizing.
neutralizing. So neutralizing a target, and that's really good mindset and good words if you actually have to do it, but it's actually, in the layman's terms, is taking somebody's life.
Yeah.
And death is one of the most uncomfortable things that, in my experience, that people anywhere have a hard time talking about, because it goes down to the ego, and it goes down, like, the ego's biggest fear is no longer existing.
Yeah.
And when people get close to death, they usually run away. There's usually a tremendous amount of fear there, and they actually push God, higher self, infinite intelligence far away. And that's
Yeah.
why it feels so terrible. That's why there's the loneliness, the fear, maybe the suicidal feelings, things like that. Because, like, if we take a spiritual tape measure, God is super far away. And then once you were there, you had to do things that you had to do. It made sense. Like when you shared with me, it was practical and it made sense. Like, yeah, that makes sense. But it doesn't make sense to your soul, doesn't make
No.
sense to your heart, to the humanity part of you. And you're in this experience where, I guess we can say, high stakes, we can say high speed, high intensity, extreme, stimulus that was too much for your nervous system experience, but then you adapt. And then it's just like, okay, now that's the new norm. Like these mortars or bombs or whatever. Okay, cool. That's, the sounds are these new sounds, but I kind of know where to go, not to go. Feel invincible, but there's a stupid place to go, like go out in front and just like there's a stupid place to go, but there's like smart places to be with cover and
Yeah.
things.
Hey, hey, baby. Give me like, uh, I'll come upstairs. I'm on a meeting right now. I love you. Sorry.
You're good. And so then when it's all said and done, basically the training you didn't get was like a crescendo to decrescendo. You got, here's this basic training, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's way up here. And then it's kind of like hovers like this. And when you get off, it's like nothing almost, because coming in like normal world, there's not the threats like there is. It's just such a opposite day, opposite world, basically. And then since the unconscious mind's always recording the whole time, it's recording the whole time. And what PTSD is basically, as a human being, is I went through an experience that I didn't have the ability, the resources, the support, the nervous system training, or the pain tolerance or experience to fully process and experience. And because of that, the unconscious mind, like takes that experience and whatever meaning that it put to it, whatever, however recorded, and it's like, okay, cool, but you got to deal with this. And it
Yeah.
generally doesn't come up. PTSD can come up during war, but it generally doesn't. Usually comes after, when you're out of the environment. And it's
Yeah.
like in the 1950s or whatever, whenever the 50s, 60s, whenever the hippies or whatever did a lot of acid or LSD, or that particular molecule, their body would take it. I think it's like a little whatever, either a drop or a stamp or whatever. They would take it and they would hallucinate, 12, 15 hours, something like that. Their
Yeah.
body could process X amount of it. But because it was such a like high dose, potent chemical component, their body had to store. Otherwise it would kill them. It would die. So part of it would go actually in the cerebral spinal fluid in the nervous system actually. And it's kind of like, I mean, most medication, you only there's like a half shelf life or half life. If you take like 10 milligrams of something, your body like metabolizes like five of it, and there's five left over. And you take another 10, now there's 15, and then it can build up kind of a tolerance like that. Well, similar to like LSD, when people used to take it a lot and then they stopped taking it, their body had this same that chemical component stored in like in the central nerve or the cerebral spinal fluid. And then when it wasn't getting imparted with more drugs or more LSD, so to speak, it would just like almost like had a bread's worth of LSD, and it would take off a pinch and it would release it into the bloodstream. And that's what's called a flashback. And what the body's
Oh,
doing is like, we need to detoxify this. And there's really four main ways to detox anything. There's through the breath, through the skin, through the bowels, or through the urine. Those are the four ways the body generally eliminates things. And so it kind of takes some of the LSD that's left over because I'm not getting dosed, body's not getting dosed more. And then I'm going to release it in the bloodstream to get peed out, pooped out, sweated out, or breathed out. And that's what a flashback is. And it does it until there's nothing left, if there's no more flashbacks. Well, PTSD is very similar to that. It's basically accumulation of experiences, like a bread loaf experiences. And then when the person isn't in the environment of the stimulus, the threat, the environment, then it's just it is this flashback. Very similarly, unlike um, acid, LSD, whatever chemical compound, which is all physical, there's X amount of flashbacks that it actually releases, and then the body is completely metabolized. There'll be no more flashbacks because there's no more of the LSD coming in. PTSD doesn't work that way. The unconscious mind's like, you need to deal with this. Even if you don't know how to deal with it, clearly you don't know how to deal with it because you went
yeah,
through the experience you didn't fully experience. And then it's like it holds it here, and then it will bring it up. And it's kind of like it sits on a shelf or kind of just it sits there. But then you go through normal experiences that's not traumatic, and you'll see a person, a sound, a situation, an experience that on some level to this unconscious mind parts that matches it, mirrors it, mimics it. And then it's like, boom, it's like, oh yeah, that reminds me, I need help. And that's what that kind of that flashback is. The issue is, or the common pattern is, how do I explain this? The more unsafe something is, the more traumatic it is. The more safe an environment it is, if there's traumatic, the more the trauma comes out because it's safe to come out.
yeah,
What's so interesting about it is it won't come out in an unsafe situation because there's more survival, there's more flight or fight. But if there
yeah,
is a situation, a loving environment, there's no bombs, there's no bullets, there's no chaos, there's no really threat for life, then it can come up. But it generally comes up, it seems like in the unopportune times. And what really needs to happen is kind of tools and resources. In a way, it's kind of like in the perfect military nervous system training would be you're here and then you're going up here and then you go to war and then you're piecing out with war and then you go back to your normal life. That would be the best case scenario. Is that
yeah,
likely? No. Is it common? No. Is it possible? Yeah. But it's more like, here's a little bit, here's a butt ton of stuff. I'm just using silly words. Here's a tremendous amount, and then when you're done, and then you get used to this, but then when you're done, it's like off of a cliff. It's just like, all right, like you're out of war. This is awesome, and thank you for your service. And here's some resource, like and I'm generalizing. There's more than this, but here's some pamphlets. Here's some resources. Here's whatever, and kind of wish you luck. But there's no de-escalating, crescendoing, and that's what needs to happen. And then so we actually have to go to that, in a way, that height of that trauma and match it, but then actually give it its needs met to learn the lessons. And it's not always easy because for especially for what we talked about and what you went through is because you physically went through something that you weren't fully psychologically or spiritually prepared for, and no amount of physical work can get rid of it. And some psychological work is possible, but it's all three. It's physical, psychological, and spiritual.
yeah,
But it really, the root of the core issue for this one was actually spiritually rooted. and
Yeah,
that
I agree with you 100%. Like I was even talking to my little sister about that. I believe that a lot of PTSD, I believe a lot of mental health period is a spiritual, it's a spiritual sickness. I do believe that.
100%, like, yeah, all mental illness for sure, and all kind of physical illness too. The way experience and see it, if there's a disconnection between ourselves, it's if there's a disconnected spiritually, it pours over into this psychological world, not being like mentally ill and things like that. And if that's not focused or dealt with, then it goes over to the physical as well. And the
Yeah,
physical is like it's getting like it basically goes spiritual, psychological, physical, death. Like you have to get the level, otherwise the body will die. Um,
yeah,
so if we can kind of circle back to, I mean, if we can kind of go backwards, so you reached out to me
yeah,
because you wanted a breakthrough, you wanted help, you wanted freedom, and you couldn't find it any other way, but you were doing research, but you went through some really difficult, really challenging times. But if we could double click, if you're cool with it, um, you there was a guy that was from there was two guys you were working with, and they were from the military. So you work for a construction company.
yes, yeah.
One was
And say that
Hungarian,
again. Oh
one guy
no,
was
no, he was Syrian. One guy was
Syrian.
Syrian. But he was a commander. He was a captain in the Syrian army. Um, and there was another guy. I believe he was in the Russian army. And I didn't really think anything of it until start like things started happening at work. I believe that they were starting to sabotage me. They were going behind. They were going behind me at like at my job sites, and they were like rewriting. Like they would go back to my job sites, and they were going back. They were rewriting my reports and like literally set like trying to sabotage me. Um, and then I believe that I felt like that was my first kind of like first experience in the civilian world. But then I felt like the fact that both of them, I don't know, like both of them were from like enemy countries, so to
Mm,
say. And we were all three of us were in different military branches. I don't know. I don't know where or why they were doing what they were doing, or because my uncle, got like helped me get the job. I don't know, but I do know that at this time when this was happening, I might have been having PTSD symptoms, or maybe maybe I feel I didn't feel like they were coming out, but I do feel like this participated in it triggering, because clearly they were trying to sabotage me, because the pictures of the reports were not my, like I would have to like the reports that they wrote and had my name on them had their hands in them. So either that is something I know for a fact, but I know that the job sites, the people I was working with, like on the job sites, resembled a lot of between that and all of like everything I was experiencing, like sensory wise, is what threw me down that rabbit hole.
and
And
there
then
was a
I,
situation they took you to a place to eat?
yeah, 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 he took me to a place to eat. And there was a guy as we're sitting down eating. Uh, there was a guy that walked in as I'm sitting down eating, like, cause it was he took me to like a curry house, like not a curry house, but like it was like I don't know how to describe it. Like it was kind of like you would consider it like a hidden gem, but like it
Right.
looked like a hole in the wall. But the food was phenomenal. Like, but it was all the same food that like when I would be on patrols, all the same smells. Like it was like that. Like you could smell all, like it was very similar. The people there, the way they were dressed, the language they were speaking, it was all the same. And then there was a guy that walked in, and he had a red beard. It resembled the same that he it resembled exactly the same to to a similar situation of a guy that myself and my unit neutralized and had to do very harmful things to him, which haunted me for a while. And so after that experience, I saw him walk in. I had to take a step out. I started getting nauseous and sweaty, and like everything. I remember I called up my wife trying to calm myself down. Like I couldn't believe it. Like I that's when I started spiraling down.
That's one thing that's interesting. I feel like God brings people into our lives sometimes that looks almost like identical or very similar to other people, and there's different lessons to be learned, and it's so interesting because every time I've experienced it or I've heard other people experience it, it's never as challenging as the first time. Meaning, like the first time, there it could be some sort of bad blood or something happens negatively, let's just say. But then years later, like the person that resembles it comes in, and the experience is not the same, but there's an opportunity to learn the lesson. And then so this particular thing, that seeing that guy that similar to the guy you neutralized and you had to do some things, um, that really triggered some PTSD, and that's when things really started spiraling for you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think like what I learned like the most from like like us talking and with these situations is that, like you said, like understanding, understanding, like I believe all like everything that we're going through, the struggle, the stripes, like everything that we experience, all the hurt, the chaos, the humility, it brings us to humility and allows us to connect and share and then help others. And that's really like now my mission and my goal is to overcome um mine and help other people forward, because like I like like, and just like you in general, like coaching people through life and be there for them. And it's kind of like similar to being starving. Like you'll never have compassion for somebody unless like and be able to like to understand like how hungry they were unless you were starving yourself. Like you wouldn't have that kind of empathy for
Right.
them, you know. And I that's what I that and I want to help people. I've lost a lot of friends, more friends here than I did over there. And I don't I kind of want to light, like the way you do, is light that candle. Like, share my light and light that candle and help people through their struggles, because the worst place you can be is stuck in your own head.
Right, especially because well, then what happens, it tries to loop and tries to go through it again, see what you can do different, and the whole thing is you can't do anything different in the physical moment, you can do something in the psychological and the spiritual moment, so to speak, and that's kinda what we did, when we led to, which gave you a lot of relief, and if you're, okay with it, let's break that down and talk about that, and so people can
Yeah,
listen to see, and
yeah,
so you were opening up to me and telling me, and let's just be blunt and blank. So there was we talked about like getting to a point like suicidal feelings and thoughts because if you kind of go backwards from what caused the suicidal thoughts and feelings, the constant like feelings, emotions, vibration, experience that kept coming over and over again, but they weren't getting resolved and things were triggering it. And it was basically like things were triggering and making it worse, not making it better. Um, but then you reached out for help and then we actually met. And so one of the biggest things was to find out like what is the root cause of these issues that you're having, this thing is causing you not to feel peace and having that suffering. And it came back to your unconscious mind led us to bring it to this guy with the red beard that you saw, and it reminded you like that in that moment when I asked you, it led you back to your unconscious mind led you that to that time in New York, which led you that time overseas. And
Yeah,
overseas, there was give me the name one more time. It's not an elimination, neutralizing. So
yeah,
you neutralize the target, had to neutralize them, and you were okay with that because there was a potential threat or a threat, and you had to do that. But then there was other things you weren't trained for, but you had to do it. And to me, on paper, it makes sense, but spiritually and psychologically, there was no preparation or training for it. And this is one of the biggest issues. Like this is one of the biggest issues I feel like that people have from these in the military, from these extreme experiences that sometimes even the military doesn't train or
yeah,
coach or things like that. So one of the things, do you have permission for me to share?
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So from my understanding, so you guys are in Humvees, and how many people can you fit? Like how many people generally, like if you like not a clown car, but
Yeah, so we have two. So you can fit 5 people.
okay. And you had to go from where you were for this target to where did you guys how many miles, kilometers did you have to go?
Like about 4 miles. Like
Okay, 4
we gotta
miles.
go 4 or 5 miles. Yeah,
And there was how many targets were neutralized?
3.
At 3. And you had how many people in the car?
We had 5 already. So we had me, my crew chief, we had the gunner, and 2 dismounts in the back. So on this mission, we were doing Overwatch for a unit that was for a unit they were called route clearance, and they got hit 96 times in less than 4 months. So we were doing Overwatch. So we had to go through the Mahalas, and we had to look for the triggermen. And we had AWT, which was Air Weapons Team, with us as we were doing this. So we were looking for guys that were planting IEDs on the side of the road, and these 3 guys did, and they got hit. And so we ended up neutralizing them. And one guy ended up, I believe, one guy that of the enemies, he I don't know if he ever passed away later on, but he survived. So we had to keep him alive. We had a my the medics were working on him, but these 2 other guys, they were gone. They were definitely gone.
And the 2 other guys were gone because you guys were on a mission that could be like a high value targets.
Yeah. So anybody that we neutralized, we would bring back with us, and we would have to scan them with it's called the bat's hide system. Scan their fingers and their eyes, their face, or what's left of them, and to see if they were a high value target.
And that's something that you have at the base, but you don't have it's 4 miles away.
Correct. Yeah.
And since that's your mission, and again, this practically on paper, to me, it makes sense. Like this was your mission, and this is what you're here to do. These guys were neutralized, and you guys have to get them scanned, but you didn't have room for everybody, like in the Humvee. It wasn't something, you know what I mean. There's only so much big, so you guys, had to take just body parts that can be scanned, and not the
Correct.
rest. Leave the rest of the body and take what needs to be scanned to be able to get that.
Yeah. We brought back everything. With just how we had to fit them inside the vehicle is how we had to do it, and that's so we had to fit this. I had to we had to fit this person in there, and that's what we did, and that's what. And he was a big guy, so that's what we did, and I don't know if he was. I don't know if he was a high value target. They didn't like tell me that. But I do know that we were working with an like two intelligence that were attached to us. It was a man and a woman, and I do know that they told us that most of the people that we brought back with us they weren't even Iraqi, they were Iranians. So um, the whole time, like I was thinking, like it was crazy to me because like the people that we were fighting, like in this country, weren't even Iraqis. So that still to me to this day blows my mind.
Yeah, war isn't always what it seems, and they could say one thing and actually be another, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Um, and so getting your mind around neutralizing somebody, like most people would have a problem with that, right?
yeah,
Most people have a most people have an issue even talking about, death and things like that, or they're not even really death for other people. That is it, but it's really their own fear, their own mortality, and it's just to me underdeveloped. They haven't brought in God there and actually like really explored that. And then so being in California, let's just say, and preparing like to be able to neutralize people, but actually have to do other things like to get, let's just say, body parts from one place to another. Like, hey, I didn't necessarily sign up for this, or yeah, I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't get the heads up, I didn't get the manual on it. But understanding when you're over there, you got to do what you got to do. Like it's for survival. It's a bigger like it makes all sense. Get that. But and when you get home and you see somebody, when God brings somebody to you that look just like, the person in the situation, there's unfinished business, let's say, the unlearned lessons. And so what we did was, again, brought current you having big time, I guess, just certain issues in your life that were resulting from being triggered here, which resulted really from the experience. And so what we did was, at first, in order to do this actually particular work that I do, a person has to have a really strong connection to God, to infinite intelligence, divine presence. Literally, I was just working with somebody yesterday, and psychologically, it's so interesting how people can have parts. So, like, this particular gentleman had a part of him that was really into, also in the military, but really like in his life where God is just super important and super powerful. And he was having some sort of issues from something when he was younger. And I asked him, like, well, where is, God right now? Could you ask God to come in the room? And he's kind of like, you know, part of him at the beginning when he wasn't having any issues, so to speak, like, God's awesome. God's great. Love God. Want God more. But then when the issue came up and I asked, it was a different part. I said, can you bring, God in the room? And he said, I feel shame. I feel guilt. So, how his mind coded the relationship with God was, if God comes closer, he feels worse. And for this particular part, not all parts of him. And I helped him with that because the part that felt worse wasn't really fully his true self. And then actually, that part that felt guilt and shame needed God the most. So, I actually walked him through. I put his mental perception of God to the side, and out of infinite possibility, if this is the best one, great, we'll use it. But if there's something better according to God, a better way to connect to God, according to God, not according to the ego or the mind, then let's use that. And that's what we did. And then there's just huge healing and transformation. So very similar. That's what happened is, let's see what's your relationship like with God. And for you is very pure, very developed. And so I asked to ask God to come into the room that you're in right now, and ask. Like, this isn't a mental thing. This is not a mental exercise, a mental technique. This is literally 100% in the spiritual realm, meaning like basically like our hands are tied. That means like we are helpless. Like in the spiritual world, essentially, in the physical world, we need to do what we need to do. Like action and building and things like that. But in the spiritual or the internal, there's not much we can do. If anything, we try to, it makes it worse. So we brought God really powerfully into your room and actually asked to fill up every square inch of the room that you're in, and then
yeah,
asked to go inside of you and fill up every cell of your being with God's light, unconditional love, infinite intelligence. So that was the first thing, which was great, but it wasn't going to change this was the setup and the foundation, but it wasn't going to change everything. And then so we also went to the younger you that had that
Right.
experience. And I think we might even removed from the situation and then surrounded and really gave that part what he needs. And then you felt pretty good, but I didn't feel like it was resolved because I've been doing this for many years and thousands of people. And so I said, okay, about this guy, because that was triggered. That's what triggered it. There was unresolved business with this guy. So you and this guy never met, and then you met, and then you went on and he didn't. And but then there was some extra stuff you had, like, to in one level, spiritually, it's over, it's done. But earthly, no, there's more to do. Like, you actually have to get his body in somehow and or parts and get it scanned and finish the job. And it's kinda like, in a way, fighting somebody, and there's a fight, and then whoever gets knocked out or whoever quits, like, that's done. But then it's like, well, keep going. Or if, like, they die, well, then keep going. Like, that just doesn't make sense, right? And
Yeah.
so we ask God to actually go around him wherever he's at right now and actually surround him and go inside of him and ask God to just instill inside of you the ability to forgive. Well, for seek forgiveness, number one, seek forgiveness from him. Again, this isn't necessarily asking, and this is asking God, give me the ability, just give it to me to seek forgiveness for him and his family. And then God gave that to you, and then ask God for the ability to forgive yourself. Give me the ability just to instill self-forgiveness. And once that happened, and then that actually kind of healed the relationship between you and him. And that's just something, again, that I don't know. I do this all the time with people and clients, but I don't know. It's not very common for people in the military to do this. And it
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
it should be. Maybe, with this podcast, more people I'll help more people, you'll help more people, that's the intention, that's the goal,
Yeah.
but we have to do things on Earth. Earth is such a learning field, training field, but there's different things we can correct it, learn from it, set right the relationship. We need to set right the relationship ultimately with everybody to be free. No matter what we did or do, so to speak, we just ultimately, at the end of the day, or at the end of the life, we need to set right the relationship and asking, and the only thing that can do that is God, and asking for that ability to forgive. And that was really, really, really huge. And that's what's so interesting, because if we don't do this, the lesson will constantly, can you help me now? Can you deal with me now? Can you take care of this now? Can you heal now? And if you don't, that's what I found to be true, is we don't, and this is true for me, true for you, true for anybody watching, is we don't have, if we had the tools, we would do it.
Yeah.
If we knew how to build,
That's 100%.
if we knew how to do rocket science, we would do rocket science. If we knew how to do chemistry, we would do. We can only do what we know how to do as human beings, and if we can't do it, then we need to partner up, team up with people who know how to do it, experts, professionals. We're all here to do what we're all here to do. And this was really powerful and touching. Like, and this is really all about you, and maybe we can have another conversation a different day, but I don't, it's not a macho I just feel like I'm not macho at all, but I'm also not a pushover either. Um, but I just, my body, I just don't cry, like, for sadness. I can't tell you why. It's not a resistance, it's not a macho thing, and I can with really, really happy moments. Last time I think I cried was when I was writing my wedding vows. It was just really
Yeah.
emotional, and it was really awesome. It was the day of the wedding, actually. But I don't know, it's just how my nervous system is and my training and things like that. But when I was doing this work with you and that divine presence was flowing through me, like, my body almost started crying just because of the release, the
I was
relief.
just about you took the words. Yeah, exactly. That was honestly, I was thinking about this yesterday. Um, I have not cried in a very, 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 very long time. But I also have been like, because of everything, I've been like, I don't want to say numb, but just I haven't been able to feel things thoroughly, or as like, but since I have released, or I made amends, like the two things we did when I brought myself from when I was little and I was left alone for quite a while, when I brought myself in that godly light, and then when I, when through that meditation, um, ask for forgiveness from him, from his family, from myself, like, from myself. And like able to release all that pain and feel that actual, like, warmth and forgiveness, like allowing, like that, being allowed to do that was just, I can't, it was, it was, it was powerful. It was very powerful. And from that moment on, I have been able to enjoy just little things more and feel them more deeply, like more internally. Like it's hard to explain. Like the little moments with I'm able to feel them emotionally with my wife, with my kids. Like I'm there's like not blocked off of something. Like I don't know how to explain
Oh, I can help you.
it.
So basically, you're more present. You have the ability to feel and experience more, and how more the unconscious mind than the nervous system. And how the unconscious mind works is, if you deal with you, me, human beings, but if you deal with PTSD, again, PTSD, very simple terms, something I had an experience that I didn't have the resources to fully experience. So it's on in queue, and it's constantly like a letter from a credit card company. You got to pay your bill. You got to pay your bill. But it's not like every 30 days. It's random, it's appearing to be random times, but it's divinely guided. And because I don't know how to experience this, so I'm going to shut off this, but it's so big that I'm going to shut off most stuff. I'm going to shut off feeling. So then I'm going to stay out of here, because if I go into here, then I actually have to feel. And I've never met a human being, like, there's no thoughts in the heart, and there's no feelings or emotions in the head. And when people are in their head, they can't feel. They don't have the ability to feel, because the mind doesn't have the ability to feel. It can think, it can come up with pictures and movies and images and memories. And it's a supercomputer. It's an advanced supercomputer, but name a computer that can feel. It can't.
Yeah,
So, and then this doesn't, there's no thoughts in here. Let me go in my heart and think. That makes no sense, even to say those words. So when people can't fully process for whatever reason what there needs to process, then they leave their heart and they go up to their head and they try to, excuse me, escape, cope, deflect, distract, um, rationalize, think, solve, but it doesn't work, because they go up to the psychological world to go do really a spiritual problem. And the spiritual problem was, there was something happened and I don't know how to do it. So I kind of like separated from myself. And it's not an overt abandonment, but it's a covert abandonment. Anytime that
yeah,
we can't deal with things, there's a part of us psychologically and spiritually that gets left off in that moment. That's what comes up in the present moment with the trigger, something like that. That's what a trigger, PTSD or flashback is. It's like, it's kind of the past, which is, the past is really dead and gone, but it's the mind's perception of the past, or the recording of the past, which isn't the real past. It's a perception, but it feels very real, but it like constantly will come up to be dealt with. But because you're dealing with that, you have more access to yourself, to feeling, to your wife, to your kids, to God. And there's a direct relationship. The more cut off we are to ourselves, the more cut off we are to God, the more we try to do it ourselves. And we don't, it's not the thing. And the cool thing about it is, the deeper we go within ourselves, there's nobody to blame.
yeah.
No
That is
judge.
that is true. Yeah,
It's like, if you go deep enough, there's nobody to blame. You can blame your parents, you can blame God. Cool, awesome, free will, no judgment. It only really hurts you, which is no judgment. But then if you go deep enough, it's just like, I just need help, or I just need, it's this surrender piece. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a phenomenal word for it, is surrender. Like, and you have to, eh, like you said, you have to be able to do the work and surrender to these feelings, and it's it's I really feel like it's very powerful for PTSD, and what you I mean, at least my experience, what you did for me, because I shared with you one of the things I did do, which kind of helped me, but it made me in my head more, was cognitive processing therapy. That was what I did, and it I ended up developing social anxiety from it, because it was like I trained my brain from being, like, from being so like aware of my surroundings, which kind of made me have relationship issues with my wife, because I wouldn't be able to constantly, like, if we would go out in public, focusing on her. So then I was just focusing more on myself and the other person, which made me hyper focused on both things. And I was like, well, this is too much for me to handle. It was so I was like, and when I was in that dark place, like I was telling you, I was just tired. I was tired of feeling the way I was feeling. I was tired of everything, and I can completely relate to your the other gentleman that you're helping with, feeling like you're not worthy of, like, the closer you get to God, like you the shame and guilt you feel for the things that you do, um of who you are, is very, 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 very powerful. Like, that is a hard guilt, is a hard hole to climb out of, because when you feel this way, like I was saying, like, it's like everything you do, it's like drinking salt water. You can't get enough. Like, and then it's just causing more chaos in your life. And I was, like I said, I was setting fires everywhere I was going. And because of that, I just felt like I was just, I was just hurting people.
because
So,
hurt people hurt people.
yeah. And I was like, all right, well, I don't belong here. I don't belong anywhere. Can't even think straight. It's, but being coming to terms with things and surrendering to them and allowing yourself to be forgiven, you got to be, that's just as powerful. But you have to be able to talk. You have to be able to, like you said, be. You have to open up. You have to
Confront.
be resilient. Yeah, you have to confront them and come to terms with them. And honestly, just like you, I don't know if it's a macho thing, but sometimes you have to allow yourself to say, okay, like, if you're just as tired, like, it's like going to the gym, like that. How, if I want to put it anyway, it's like, I don't feel like doing this today. Like, I don't, but like, once you get done, you're like, holy fuck, like that, like, okay, I got it now. Like, but you got to keep the momentum up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I it's so interesting because life is so dynamic, and there's things like to some people would have the hardest time in life, um, to neutralize somebody, right? Some people like, "Oh, I could never do that," or blah, 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 blah. Some people, it's like, "No, I can neutralize somebody easily," but confronting them internally and asking for I could never do that. So, like, what I'm trying to say is there's people with different levels of nervous system training or level of consciousness, pain tolerance, like personal development. And so the point is, like, it's one thing to, we have it in our training. We talked about there's difference between masculine and feminine energies. So masculine energy isn't limited to men, and feminine energy isn't limited to women. So we actually technically break down. Everybody has masculine and feminine energy. Masculine is the left brain. Is so it's this side, between this side. This is the feminine, the right brain. Masculine is the head, the mind. Feminine is the heart. Masculine is the external world, the skin outside. Feminine is the internal world, skin inside. Masculine is doing and action. Feminine is actually rest and recovery. Masculine is thinking. Feminine is feeling. So we all have these things, and the best possible people, leaders, you name it, have balance of both. They can actually
Yeah,
communicate and all that. And a lot of people get out of balance. More The majority of women that I've ever worked with actually has more disconnected masculine than men, actually. And because a lot of different reasons, especially working in the corporate world. But then we have connected masculine and disconnected masculine, connected feminine or disconnected with God and without God. And it's really about balance. And some people have the hardest time doing things. Like some people, like working out discipline would be the hardest thing in the world. Other people, like confronting themselves, their hurt, their trauma, fear, darkness, that's the hardest thing in the world. And everybody, we all have the hardest thing for us. Something's hardest for us, easy for other people, and vice versa. And if we want to grow, like we really have to like leave no stone unturned. We have to actually self confront, and we don't know how to do that ourselves. And so we need to actually, when we're ready, we draw the teacher. There's that universal spiritual, teaching is like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And we have to be ready, willing, and able for that. And it doesn't have to be pretty, and it doesn't have to be smooth. It can be bumpy and choppy at the beginning. But it's like, the first time doing like a bicep curl or the first time doing a bench press, pretty much for everybody, it's all over the place. It's not pretty. And then
yeah,
but
it's true.
you get smooth, wherever your hand position, your elbows underneath, mid nipple line all the way to the clavicles, the contracting, that protracting, all that stuff. And the better we get, the more technical it gets. But that's what I feel like this journey is on life is coming back, learning about ourselves, like self, know thyself, but self-development and really helping other people. But we need to solve everyone's life is like, I look at it as a puzzle. Every single life is like, here's your life, but it's also, here's a puzzle, and it's meant to be solved. But it's not like one thing, it's this part of the puzzle, now this part of the puzzle, now this part of the puzzle. And puzzles could be framed as challenges or obstacles or problems, but it's part of the puzzle that we need to solve. And once we solve it, we get elevated to the next level, and then like doors unlock, and like, resources unlock. And the more we solve our own puzzle, the more we actually can help other people solve their puzzle. And we're supposed to do it in a way that works best for us. That's why there are plumbers, construction workers, mechanics, artists, musicians, fighters, soldiers, like all kinds of different things. And God can come through all that. um but when it just comes down to war, it's like the very simple level, like, I hate you, I want to kill you. Not even I hate you, because war is not always about hate, but I'm just giving you a
Yeah,
metaphor. I hate you, I want to kill you. I hate you, I want to kill you. And fight. But once the fight's over, it, on some level, it needs to be, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm
And
sorry.
there's a lot of post like clarity that happens that that we went over. It's like, well, he had like you start thinking like, like when you get a lot of time and peace, like you think like, I wonder, he had a life, he might have had family, he might have had, you don't know. And that was, hard to come to terms with, like, because we all had families we were coming home to,
Yeah.
you know. So, that was something that I had to ask God to forgive me for, and for forgiveness of them. And that was powerful too. And like you said, tapping into that feminine energy. is trying to find that balance. That is true, and that's fascinating. I never actually looked at the world in that kind of light before. That's that's good. Like I never that is true. The internal, external, and being like macho and all that. So
Well,
that's
macho
and
technically is the disconnected masculine.
yeah,
So connected masculine would be courageous. Um, it would be like confronting things like that. But macho isn't always ego too. I mean, it could be fun hanging out with buddies and seeing who can do more push-ups. You know what I mean? That so let's do a pull-up contest. Let's, you know, like I'm thinking maybe 18 years old. Let's, have your girlfriends get on your back and see who can do more squats or you know what I mean? Chicken fights or whatever.
yeah,
In the what is it called? Chicken fights in the pool. But like so the
yeah,
macho doesn't have to be divisive, but macho can be, what a 1950 Greece, whatever, where you're racing and the last one to knock over the cliff wins, but they actually lose because they die and you jump out of the car. It makes no sense. So that's kind of like a good metaphor of macho that's not connected.
yeah.
Or
Like letting
ego.
the ego take over.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
But that can happen. But yeah, but not feeling. I mean, the ego, that's a whole nother level. The ego, like not feeling emotions. That's there's ego involved. Feeling emotions too much. I haven't feel everyone's emotions and everything. That's ego too. So
yeah,
it goes on either extreme is out of balance and either extreme is disconnected. And
yeah,
it's really helpful actually seeing the world like that. We actually have one of the trainings that we offer is like we call it mental magic, but it's like the foundation of the NLP. And it's literally, if you don't even understand any of those words, we just say it's like leadership and communication foundation. You get to actually learn about the difference between like it's the anatomy of your unconscious mind. The body's got an anatomy. Well, the mind is an anatomy, but it's just not really taught anywhere else besides what we
yeah,
do, and in very, very few places in the world. But then there's this masculine and feminine energy, and we all like it's cool learning about yourself, because the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn about other people. Because on one side, absolutely, we're all individual, and there's nobody like us and ever like us. The other level, we're all individual on one side of the coin, and we're all similar, almost the same. We all go to the bathroom. We all need love. We all need to love. We all need sleep, like we need movement. There's just certain basic needs that we need as human beings. And in a way they're finite. And to learn about that, it's really important. But just understand the masculine and feminine energies is extremely important and liberating and freeing.
yeah, yeah. It sounds like it, and it's eye opening. That's I like once I'm done working on myself. I told you my goal is to be a coach as well, and I really look forward to that. Like learning about all that.
Yeah, let me help reframe something for you because you're never gonna. I know what you're saying, but you're never gonna be done working on yourself. But once you get to a certain level of healing and transformation, that you get the inner calling, that you're ready to start to pay it forward. That's what it's gonna be. But like, there's a
Yeah,
breath in your body. I just know you because I can see you, me and you and me. That as long as there's a breath in your body, you're gonna still, evolve, grow, help more people.
exactly. Yeah, I can't wait, and I really, really, I love that word evolve. Like, and that I could, I'm definitely evolving, and it's like it's just like anything in the world, man. Once you step out of your comfort zone, you know, you start working on yourself. Like you start flying, and I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, really appreciate all the help you've given me, and I'm glad that I had a calling to reach out to you, and that you returned my phone call, and you guys have honestly helped me and my family.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that. I fully received that, and I'm gonna give it back to you. I'm not. I'll take what you shared, and I'm gonna give my own, which is I really appreciate you and stepping up as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a soldier, as a warrior, spiritual warrior, like stepping up. And again, it's just in my world, it's about solutions, no excuses. Like excuses are for losers, and losers in a judgment. Losers never quit, or sorry, quitters never let me say it again. Winners never quit and quitters never win. So that's like what a loser is that people give up on themselves or other people, and that's not you. And I really appreciate that because you're the reason why I do what I do. You're the reason why I've studied hundreds of thousands of hours for this to be able to put myself in a position to help someone like you who's going to help your family, help your kids, not exactly what you said, your words, like you're going to learn these lessons and solve this part of the puzzle personally, but even in your ancestral lineage, because you don't want to pass this, like, here's this. That's like a worse feeling for parents is like, here's, what my parents gave to me, I'm going to give it to you. And I'm not going to put any effort into it. Or I don't know, I tried for 2 seconds and here you go. And you're like, no, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to actually give you the best thing. And it might be in a different direction. It's going to take as long as it's going to take. So I really appreciate that with you, like as a man, as a person, stepping up. And it, it helps me because you're helping me fulfill my purpose and you're helping your family, you're helping redirect like the course of your ancestral lineage. And that's what I feel is most important right now in 2024. Just this time of life is for people like you to step up and say, I'm going to do something different than what was given to me. Again, it's not, taking it, it's not your parents didn't do anything. It's not that at all. It's not blaming the parents. It's just that the negative things, the underdeveloped things. And it's like, I'm going to step up and solve this. I don't care how painful it is. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how deep I have to go. I don't care what I have to confront. I'm going to do what my ancestors weren't ready for, wasn't time for, or had to go through all the things to set me up for this. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate that about you.
I, and I received that, I and thank you so much, honestly, for that. I really, genuinely, I that really, really means a lot to me. And I'm gonna pay it forward.
Yeah.
That's
I'm excited to have you back on the podcast down the road once you have some training and you're, taking on clients and really help someone. I'm gonna definitely help you out with that too as well.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for today, if this is what I'm called to do, if you would be open to it, kind of feel called to end this podcast with a blessing, a prayer, a guided meditation. So, like, not only for you and everybody that's been involved with what you went through, but anybody who's listening to this, to really, my intention with this is for us to, like, come together and really hold space so that it's a blessing for you and your family and the people that were, let's say, part of your history, part of your past. But if anybody's watching this, they're going through something similar, I want them to receive that and to know that there's not only there's support, like, right, just by watching this right here, right now, but there is a way to receive like coaching. There is a way to receive healing. There's the word that you used after the first time we met. It wasn't liberation. You said it was something with liberation. It was you felt, what was that word?
Um, I felt like a release. Like I felt it was um, it was powerful. It was surrendering. Like it was. I think it was liberating.
Liberating. Okay, that's what it was then.
Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
was like I was able to breathe. Like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Like
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's send that out together then. I'll just do all the
okay,
work. Let's send that out. So just if you can join me and just ask God, the divine presence, just to completely fill up the room that you're in, completely fill up the room that I'm in, completely fill up the space in between, completely fill up the room, every square inch of the room with whoever's listening, whoever's watching. And to help visual people, you can just visualize and imagine a golden light that just permeates every square inch of the room that you're in and the space in between. And ask that divine presence, that light of God, to also come inside everybody listening, watching, all parties involved. Just come inside and to fill up every square inch or every cell of your being with that golden divine light. And just simply ask that presence to take over. And just ask the presence that whoever's listening just automatically and unconditionally starts to receive healing, clarity, that feeling of release, relief, surrender, being finally taken care of. And if there's anybody in your life that could use this golden light, this divine presence, infinite intelligence, ask for it not to go to that person or that place, but to multiply, stay with you, never leave you, actually grow to become deeper within you, but also multiply and send it to anyone or anything that needs it. It doesn't matter if they're friends, family, enemies. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the goal is peace. The goal is love. That's the mission. But we need help and we need to work together to get there. So I'm just going to say out loud, thank you, the divine presence, for everything you've given me, everything you've given Vinny, everything you've given anybody who ever needed anything from you, and constantly, continuously help us develop that relationship with you in a personal way and make sure it's balanced, that we have the divine father, the divine mother, the heavenly father and the heavenly mother, both sides of the divine presence. We just ask for this presence to come powerfully into our lives, help guide us for maximum health, mental clarity, spiritual connection, and financial abundance. Thank you so much. Keep helping us, keep guiding us. 'Cause
Thank you for
that's
that. Yeah, I receive all that and I send it back out to everybody.
yeah, keep it and then multiply it. Yeah, that's the trick. Is never to like just almost like receive God or blessing, thank you, and give it back. It's like thank you, and let me double that, and then triple it and quadruple it. Yeah, that's what's needed the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was an honor, um, honestly, for you to be asked to come on your podcast. I I greatly appreciate it, and thank you. Thank you for seeing the light in me and allowing me to share my story.
Yeah, it's really important, and I again, I just want to thank you for the authenticity and transparency, because that the reason why I'm doing this podcast and the reason why I'm showing more coaching, I'm showing more, like I've been doing this for so long and miracles happen every single day, um, around me, through me, and because of I dedicated my life to this. And
Yeah,
so many people don't see it. It needs to get in front of more eyeballs. People just need to see and experience. And it can only happen. I can, just do podcasts and talk to myself and it work for a percentage of the people, but it's getting awesome people and really about connecting and hearing people's stories and how what they've come where they came from, what they went through to really connect to that divine presence, connect to their life's purpose. And again, especially for people in the military, it takes someone with huge spiritual cojones. I don't know how to say it any way, to just put yourself out there and say, yeah, this is some of the stuff I went through. And it led to, the most challenging things, led to the most darkest things. But with that also led me to the surrender, which led me to the most like illuminating things. And the story isn't over. The journey isn't over. So
it's
I'm really
not.
excited.
And yeah, and there's a lot out there. There's a lot of us out there. A lot, especially veterans. And I know quite a few that if it helped me, it can definitely help them. That I know for a fact. And you know, I, with like I said, I mean, what you and your wife are doing is God's work, the divine work, and I it's I'm glad I'm able to receive it, and I'm glad that we're sending it out there. And I really hope this does. and I pray that it does reach those ears and those hearts.
Absolutely, and feel free to share it with anybody who you feel could benefit from it. And we do, we started our program to help people with special pricing rates and special program for people that are in or have been in the military, just because we know we can help fill some of the gap that the training that they didn't get, and help with that relief and help with the decrescendo, and back into like, I mean, before everyone was a soldier, you're a person, right? And then
Yeah.
you become this soldier or this warrior, but then there's like the debriefing, like there's debriefing from a mission, but how about nervous system debriefing? How about unconscious mind debriefing? How about spiritual debriefing? Like really those three things.
Yeah.
And once
And
that happens,
connecting back with God.
yep, yep, awesome. Well, great job.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. If I could, I'd give you a hug right now. Um, so thank you so much. Honestly, you really helped me out a lot.